Hey, good Wednesday morning, and thanks for checking out your latest long-range forecast. Michael Clark here with BAMWX.com. Let's kind of start off here with where we've been and look at kind of, where we're going to go. We're going to finish up the month here of September at around 199 CDDs. And we're going to kind of look at a transition here in the pattern, really overall. Especially, you can really already see it the last 14 days where the warmth has really set up shop in the central U.S. down into the desert southwest, really the western half of the country. We've seen this notable warmth set up the last 14 days. It's been colder across the east and the south. And I think we're going to be kind of continuing this a little bit as we get into October, this generalized cooler east, warmer west type pattern, okay? Looking at precipitation over the last 30 days, overall, with the exception of the incredibly heavy rainfall event in East Iowa, Western Illinois, Southwest Wisconsin a few weeks ago, that's still totaling 200 to 300% of the 30-day normals. Overall, it's been rather dry, especially across the Ohio Valley, getting into the parts of the Northeast. Some of these people just haven't seen any rain. Down here in the desert Southwest, we haven't really seen much in the way of rain. So you can kind of see what's going on in general. This is a very dry pattern, again, with the exception of here. Yeah, the moisture itself, everything's kind of been shunted to the south. It just hasn't been that wet. We need rain. Unfortunately, we're probably not going to get much of it. 7-day totals here are probably generous and a little overdone. If you look here at the blended the blend of model solutions, looking at the WPC's forecast. There's a little bit of rain chance here this weekend with a weak disturbance, but when we look at our model data, it's not very impressed, and neither am I. And I think that the potential here is that as this gets closer, it could possibly dry up, kind of like what we saw with the last storm system that went through here. Okay, so not looking too great for chances in the rainfall department the next 7 days, but if you're harvesting, it can't really get much better. It's pretty ideal harvest weather. We're not looking at any significant impacts to the crop or to delays or anything. So I guess you can't complain about that, right? The 1 to 5 day temperature departure using our forecast models here, looking, running 5 to 10 degrees below normal the next 5 days. A very fall-like feel to open up October, and one of the coldest opens to October in a long time when looking at gas-weighted heating degree days. In over 5 years. It's a very cool start to the month. And as we roll forward into the 6 to 10 day period, again, it's kind of what I talked about. We're keeping it cool to the east. And you know what? In October, when you're looking at the 5th through the 9th, when you're colder than average, that's chilly. I mean, October, on a 30-year average standpoint, can have some cooler temperatures. Recently, it hasn't been cool, but, this is not a warm look in the east. And it's going to allow for the first 10 days of October for those HDDs to pile up a little bit faster than usual. Now, looking at the extended pattern, what I've done here is I've compared all three of our global models. I have our EPS, I have our GEFS here, and then I have our Canadian. 5 to 10 day across the top, 10 to 15 day across the bottom. Okay, 5 to 10 here, 10 to 15 here. The big differences right now are what's going on with the evolution of things further east into the 10 to 15 day period, okay? The European model is really suggesting a strong negative PNA signal and a ridge developing to the east, but strong blocking, a negative NAO signal as well. It's really pumping up the heights here and suggesting a strong ridge in the east here in the 10 to 15, and that warmth would kind of migrate east as well with it. The European has not done well. The ensembles have not done well in this region here in over a year, really. The EPO, the PNA forecasts of the European model, in my opinion, have been very volatile, very, very dramatic in terms of just changing from run to run. And given the setup, given what I see, I think it's just too far east with this. Now, the negative AAM correlation would match this EPS forecast suggestion. No doubt about that. But I think with the other things going on, it might just be a little too much. And that's kind of the possibility here, if you will, okay? Because I'm wondering, if we can get the negative AAM tendencies, the negative AAM in general, to be felt a bit sooner, it's possible that it could allow the jet to not be as strong in the 10 to 15 day period. And it's possible that it could amplify the Aleutian Ridge a bit more. Essentially what that would do is that would pull this trough further west, okay? And you're going to magically, or naturally, you're going to pull that ridge back west if that idea can take place. Honestly, the 10 to 15, 5 to 10, and 10 to 15 day of the Canadian model, honestly, is kind of what I can see happening. The ridge a little further west, this trough back west a little bit, and a trough in the east. And I could see that with what I'm seeing in the organic forecast department, all right, in the East Asia low and things like. I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. But the EPS is on its own island. It's warmer and it's further east than both suggestions from the American and Canadian model guidance, all right? I don't think it's going to be cold in the east. I think it's going to be cooler than what the model suggests, okay? The EPS is certainly the coldest in the 5 to 10 day period. But regardless, we've got to watch this period to see how far east is the warmth going to go into October, okay? And I'm gonna dissect that in just a second. Regardless, the next 10 days it's incredibly dry, and even out really to the next 15 days, there's really not a heck of a lot in the way of moisture here across the country. All right. I want to show you the NAEFS product. This is the North American Ensemble Forecast System. Here's a 0Z run. I want to show you yesterday's, the 29th, and we'll look at 12Z. All right. You can kind of see just the trends here. What's going on? It's keeping the east in this neutral standpoint with the warmth back to the west. This is the 8 to 14 day probability using the ensemble blend of Canada and America. I don't hate this. Again, I think that's a possibility. When we look at the MJO, okay, we have both models suggesting we could roll into a phase 5 of the MJO. All right. When we look at what that might look like or what that might mean, it brings the suggestion of the warmth, again, being centered back further to the north and west, with the potential here that we would keep, this is since 1990, October MJO 5 since 1990, with the potential here at opening up the door for cooler risks in here. And when you have the East Asia pattern I'm about to show you, coupled with this, I think this makes sense. I think the warmth is back in here. All right. Both models are suggesting the MJO phase 5. So let's talk about the organic methods, piled onto this. We look here at the SOI, the Southern Oscillation Index. Its 30-day running total is plus 10. That's a La Nina. And the recent SOI has taken a little bit of a rise here as well. All right. So we see a consistent positive SOI has been the case. Now let's look at our atmospheric correlations, our linear correlations. And these are surface temperature correlations. Forecast big rise in the AAO, Antarctic Oscillation. All right. We're seeing a big rise forecast here. That's a strong correlation for that pattern I just told you about. Okay. The SOI is plus 9. Okay. You can see it's a little bit east, but it does have this southern and eastern cooler suggestion. The AMO is a weak positive, regardless the core of the warmth favored west. Nino 3.4 is now a -1. Naturally, that's going to match the Southern Oscillation Index. Those are pretty close correlations for the most part. So you can see that is a risk for it to be a little bit warmer east. And here's the negative AAM. It's a strong correlation for eastern U.S. warmth. All right, but the negative, the EPS is doing two things. It's got the negative AAM, but it's got a negative NAO coming as well. Look at the strong correlation for the cooler suggestion of a negative NAO in October. So eventually, guys, we have to kind of draw the line is where are we going to go with this forecast? We have to come up with our forecast. You know what I mean? And again, when you look at that at the North Atlantic Oscillation, the NAO forecast, it is going to go negative. All right, and so that's a cooler risk to this forecast, if you will. So when the rubber meets the road, we see this here in the 3 to 5 day period in East Asia. A strong cold front's going to come through. And I think ultimately what I think this is going to equate to is what we've drawn up. This week 2 forecast of having the warmth further west and the cold east. It's the polar opposite of 19, really. This flipped this in 2019. It's possible that this could actually trend cooler in the east as we get closer, right? Because of the situation I talked about where we could pull this ridge further, or this trough further west, which would pull this ridge further west, which would essentially exacerbate the trough in the east. All right, so we've got to watch this. It's tough to have an exact answer, but that's the thought process right now. All right. Precipitation, it's going to continue to remain dry. Week 1, week 2, we're continuing to see a dry forecast. Not much in the way of any rain. Again, polar opposite of 19. When we look at October, our updated October forecast, we're calling for 270 GWHDDs and a cooler eastern U.S. 2019 was a little bit cooler in the HDD department at 308, but it's going to be very warm where it is warm. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's going to be warm where it's warm. So that's going to weigh on the HDDs a little bit, but it's still going to be a dry month. Okay, forecasting below normal to much below normal precipitation for the month of October. Okay. We do have our preliminary November outlooks. They are on the site. We are currently forecasting a 560 HDD, and that is actually incorrect. We need to fix that. That is not 308, so my apologies there. Analogs at a 544 were a tad bit chillier, okay, but we are warmer than the 10 and 30-year normals at 584 and 577. If I had a comment before I wrap up, if there's going to be cold, it's going to be in the first part of winter. In the heating demand season, it's probably going to come in the first chunk of it, if I had to make a call right now. Keep you posted. Have a great day.